Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to explore the incredible history of Spain through an engaging story. Listen carefully to the pronunciation and try to catch the rhythm of the words. This journey will take us from ancient times all the way to the modern world, helping you improve your listening skills. Remember, you can pause the video at any time if you need to review a specific sentence. Let us begin our deep dive into the past of this beautiful country.
Long ago, Spain was a land of thick green forests and wild animals. The first people who lived there were called the Iberians, and they built small villages made of stone. Imagine living in a world where you had to hunt for your food every single day. Keep in mind that these early people did not have modern tools, so life was very hard. Soon, other groups of people sailed across the sea to visit this rich land. The Phoenicians and the Greeks arrived because they wanted to trade beautiful purple cloth and shiny metals. Listen to how these different groups mixed together and changed the culture of the area. They built new towns along the beautiful coast and taught the local people how to grow olive trees. Do not forget that olives and olive oil are still very important in Spain today. Later, a very powerful group of people called the Celts moved into the northern part of Spain. They brought strong iron weapons and a different way of building houses. Picture the Celts mixing with the Iberians to create a brand new culture called the Celtiberians. They lived in round stone houses on top of hills to stay safe from enemies. Notice how the location of a house can protect a family from danger. These people were excellent artists and made beautiful gold jewelry. However, a much larger power from the city of Rome was looking at Spain with great interest. Watch out for the big changes that happened when the mighty Roman soldiers arrived. The Romans wanted to control the entire area because it had valuable silver mines. Silver was like money to the Romans, and they wanted as much as they could find. The war between the local people and the Romans lasted for more than 200 years. The Romans were very organized, and they had a massive army that won most of the battles. Think about how difficult it must have been for the local tribes to fight against such a big army. Finally, Rome won the war and took complete control of the whole land, which they called Hispania. Hispania is the ancient name that gave us the modern word Spain. The Romans changed everything by building long stone roads, large theaters, and giant bridges to carry water. Pay close attention to how these Roman structures still stand in Spain today. They also brought their own language, which was Latin. Over many years, this Latin language slowly changed into the Spanish language that people speak today. So when you learn Spanish, you are actually learning a modern form of ancient Latin. For hundreds of years, Hispania was a peaceful and rich part of the Roman Empire. Great Roman leaders and writers were actually born in Spain during this successful time. Consider how a small province could become so important to a giant empire. But nothing lasts forever, and the Roman Empire slowly grew weak and began to fall apart. Remember that every great empire in history eventually comes to an end. New groups of people from the north, called the Visigoths, saw that Rome was weak and invaded Spain. They took over the cities and established their own kingdoms with new kings. Listen to the shift in power as the Visigoths became the new masters of the land. They accepted the local religion and tried to keep the Roman laws alive. Remember, even though the rulers changed, the daily life of the normal people stayed very similar. This period of the Visigoths created a bridge between ancient times and the Middle Ages.
In the year 711, a major change happened that altered the course of Spanish history completely. An army of Muslims from North Africa sailed across the narrow sea and entered Spain. Imagine the surprise of the Visigoth kings when this new army arrived so quickly. Keep in mind that this army was highly organized and very fast. Within a few short years, they conquered most of the country and called it El Andalus. They chose the beautiful city of Córdoba to be their main capital. Listen to how Córdoba grew to become one of the richest and most advanced cities in all of Europe. During this time, most of Europe was living in a very dark and difficult period. In Al-Andalus, however, learning and science were celebrated by everyone. The new rulers brought amazing new ideas about agriculture and water control. They built advanced systems to bring water from rivers directly to dry farm fields. Think about how important water is for growing food in a very hot country. They introduced wonderful new plants to Spain, such as oranges, lemons, rice, and sugarcane. Next time you eat an orange, remember it was brought to Spain during this time. The city of Córdoba became famous for its giant library, which held hundreds of thousands of books. Scholars from different countries came to Córdoba to study medicine, stars, and math. Pay attention to how people of different religions lived together in peace during this period. Muslims, Christians, and Jews worked side by side in the universities and markets. This special cooperation created a very rich and unique culture. The buildings created during this time were incredibly beautiful and full of complex patterns. The architects did not use pictures of people, so they made beautiful shapes and designs with stone. Picture the famous Mosque of Córdoba with its hundreds of red and white stone arches. Walk through the quiet gardens of the Alhambra Palace, where water flows through beautiful stone channels. Remember, these buildings still attract millions of visitors to Spain every single year. The rulers also built public baths and clean streets that were lit up at night. This was a huge contrast to other European cities, which were often dark and dirty. Consider how much more comfortable life was in a city that valued cleanliness and light. Music and poetry also flourished, creating new styles that influenced Spanish music forever. However, as time went by, the big Muslim kingdom began to break up into smaller states. The small kingdoms started to fight against each other for power and wealth. Notice how internal fighting can make a strong country become very weak. At the same time, Christian kingdoms in the north of Spain were growing much stronger. These northern Christians started a long campaign to take back the land, which they called the Reconquista. This war lasted for many centuries, with the border moving south very slowly. Listen to the stories of famous knights who fought in these historic battles. Step by step, the Christian kingdoms captured major cities like Toledo and Seville. By the late 15th century, only one small Muslim kingdom remained in the south, called Granada. The year 1492 was one of the most important years in the entire history of the world. Two powerful rulers, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, united the two largest Christian kingdoms of Spain. Think about how joining two kingdoms together can make a single giant superpower. Remember that they also captured Granada, which ended the long period of the Reconquista. In that same year, the Queen decided to give money to an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus.
Columbus believed he could find a shorter path to Asia by sailing west across the dark ocean. Imagine the fear and excitement of sailing into an unknown ocean with no maps. Instead of reaching Asia, Columbus landed in the Americas, opening up a whole new world for Spain. This discovery changed the map of the world forever and brought immense wealth to Spain. Gold and silver began to flow into Spain from the new lands across the Atlantic Ocean. Spain quickly became the richest and most powerful nation in all of Europe. Listen to how the Spanish kings used this wealth to build huge armies and beautiful navies. They created a global empire that stretched from Europe to the Americas and all the way to Asia. People used to say that the sun never set on the Spanish Empire because it was so large. The Spanish kings also spent a lot of money building grand palaces and enormous churches. Look at the beautiful art and literature that appeared during this golden century. Famous writers like Miguel de Cervantes wrote stories like Don Quixote, which people still love today. Don Quixote is considered one of the greatest novels ever written in human history. However, having so much gold and silver actually created huge problems for the country. Because there was so much money, the prices of normal things like food and clothes went up very fast. Try to understand how having too much gold can actually make a country poorer in the long run. This economic problem is called inflation, and the Spanish leaders did not know how to stop it. Furthermore, the Spanish kings spent almost all their wealth fighting expensive wars in Europe. They wanted to defend their land and their religion against other European countries. Listen to the story of the Spanish Armada, a massive fleet of ships sent to fight England. A terrible storm and strong English ships destroyed the fleet, which was a massive blow to Spain. This defeat marked the slow beginning of the end for Spain's absolute power. By the 17th century, the great Spanish Empire was starting to lose its strength. The kings were weak, the treasury was completely empty, and the country was tired of endless wars. Notice how quickly a rich country can lose its position when it does not manage its money well. Spain lost control of several lands in Europe, and its power across the ocean began to decrease. Even though the political power was fading, Spanish art remained incredibly beautiful. Painters like Diego Velázquez painted masterpiece pictures of the royal family in their grand rooms. Look closely at the famous painting called Las Meninas to see the detail of royal life. But the glorious days of being the world's only superpower were gone forever. Spain had to adapt to a new world where other European nations were becoming much stronger. The 19th century brought a time of great trouble and constant change to Spain. In the year 1808, the famous French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte decided to invade the country. Imagine the fear when a giant foreign army suddenly marches into your hometowns. Remember that Napoleon was conquering almost all of Europe at this specific time. He removed the Spanish king and placed his own brother on the royal throne. The proud people of Spain refused to accept this foreign ruler and rose up to fight back. Listen to the stories of normal citizens fighting against professional soldiers in the streets. This type of surprise fighting is where we get the word guerrilla, which means little war. With help from the British Army, the Spanish people eventually forced the French to leave their land. Although Spain won the war against France, the country was left broken and extremely poor. While Spain was busy fighting the French, its colonies in the Americas decided to fight for freedom. Think about how hard it is to protect colonies across the sea when your own home is destroyed. Remember, one by one, countries like Mexico, Peru, and Argentina became independent nations. Spain lost almost all of its massive global empire in a very short number of years. This loss of land and money caused serious political arguments inside Spain itself. Notice how the country split into two different groups with completely opposite ideas. One group wanted to keep traditional ways and a strong king, while the other group wanted modern laws. Remember, this deep disagreement led to several smaller civil wars throughout the 19th century. The towns and cities of Spain were changing as the Industrial Revolution slowly arrived. Factory chimneys began to rise in cities like Barcelona, and the first trains connected major towns. Picture the contrast between the old countryside and the noisy new factories. A new class of factory workers appeared, and they began to demand better working conditions. Remember, these changes caused even more tension between the rich landowners and the poor working people. The government changed many times as different generals tried to take control of the state. Pay close attention to how unstable the country became during this period of transition. Spain was trying to find its identity in a modern world that was changing very quickly. Remember, the old days of imperial wealth were completely replaced by daily struggles at home. In the year 1898, Spain faced a final disaster that shocked the entire population. A short war with the United States ended in a total defeat for the Spanish military. Listen to the sad moment when Spain lost its very last colonies, including Cuba and the Philippines. This event is known in Spanish history simply as the Disaster of '98. It caused many thinkers and writers to ask deep questions about why their country was failing. Look at how this sadness inspired a beautiful movement of art and deep literature. These artists wanted to fix the national spirit and build a better future for the citizens. However, the deep divisions in society did not go away and continued to grow worse. The 19th century ended, leaving Spain unprepared for the extreme challenges of the next century. The early part of the 20th century was the most tragic period in modern Spanish history. The political arguments between the different groups finally exploded into a terrible civil war in 1936. Imagine a beautiful country where neighbors turned against each other because of different ideas. Keep in mind that a civil war is often the most painful kind of war for any country. The war lasted for 3 long years and caused immense suffering for millions of people. A powerful military leader named General Francisco Franco led the side that eventually won the war. Listen to the somber details of how life changed completely after the fighting stopped. Franco became the absolute dictator of Spain, and he ruled the country with total control for 36 years. During a dictatorship, citizens do not have freedom of speech or the right to vote. The years after the Civil War were incredibly quiet, strict, and very dark for Spain. General Franco closed the borders and tried to make the country completely self-sufficient. Think about how hard it is for a country to survive without trading with its neighbors. Food was scarce, and many families had to use special paper tickets just to buy basic bread. The government controlled the newspapers, the radio, and everything that was taught in the schools. Anyone who disagreed with the dictator was put in prison or forced to leave the country. Notice how the rich cultural life of the past was replaced by strict rules and fear. Many famous artists and writers chose to live in other countries so they could work freely. This long period of isolation kept Spain separate from the fast growth of Western Europe. By the late 1950s, the economic situation was so bad that the government had to change its plans. Franco decided to open up the borders to foreign visitors and foreign businesses. Watch how this decision transformed the country into a popular holiday destination. Millions of tourists from Northern Europe began to visit the beautiful sunny beaches of Spain. These tourists brought a lot of foreign money and new modern ideas to the local people. New factories opened, and many young people moved from small farms to the big cities for work. Listen to how the economy started to grow very quickly, creating a new middle class. Although the people had more money, they still did not have political freedom. The desire for real democracy was growing stronger every day among the young generation. In November 1975, General Francisco Franco died, bringing an end to the long dictatorship. The entire nation held its breath, wondering if another violent war would start. Picture the tension as the country stood at a critical crossroads in its long history. Instead of fighting, the political leaders made a famous agreement to change the country peacefully. They decided to forgive the past and work together to build a modern democracy. King Juan Carlos became the head of state and helped this peaceful transition. Notice how amazing it is when a country chooses peace over revenge after decades of pain. A brand new constitution was written, giving equal rights and personal freedom to all citizens. This successful move to democracy is studied by historians all over the world today.
After becoming a democracy, Spain changed as almost any other country in Europe. In the year 1986, Spain officially joined the European Union, which connected it to its neighbors. Think about how joining a large family of nations can open up new opportunities for young people. Joining the Union brought billions of euros to build new highways, fast trains, and universities. The ultimate moment of national pride came in 1992 when Barcelona hosted the Olympic Games. This amazing event showed the entire world that Spain was now a modern, cool, and dynamic country. Imagine the joy of the citizens as the whole world watched their beautiful city shine. In that same year, a major universal exhibition took place in the southern city of Seville. Spain was no longer an isolated country. It was at the center of the world stage. Today, Spain is famous around the globe for its amazing quality of life and rich culture. Spanish food, like tapas and paella, is enjoyed by food lovers in every country. Listen to how the traditional ways of cooking have been mixed with modern culinary art. Spain is also a world leader in sports, winning major trophies in football, tennis, and cycling. Think about how much pride these sports victories bring to the people of the nation. The country has also built one of the best high-speed train systems in the entire world. Notice how easy it is to travel from Madrid to the coast in just a few short hours. Spanish fashion, cinema, and music are popular across the globe, especially in Spanish-speaking countries. The language that started as simple Latin is now spoken by more than 500 million people. However, like every modern country, Spain still faces serious challenges in the present day. The global economic problems of recent years caused high unemployment, especially for young graduates. Consider how difficult it is for a young person to finish university and struggle to find a good job. This economic pressure has caused many young people to move to other countries for work.
There are also political discussions about how different regions should be managed within the country. Pay attention to how important it is for a democratic nation to talk about its problems peacefully. Despite these modern difficulties, the spirit of the Spanish people remains incredibly strong and positive. They highly value family life, social connections, and enjoying time with friends in the open air. We have reached the end of our grand journey through the long and rich history of Spain. We have seen how ancient tribes, Roman builders, Muslim scholars, and global explorers all shaped this land. Reflect on how all these different historical layers created the beautiful country we know today. Every historic event, whether good or painful, helped to build the unique identity of the nation. Today, Spain stands proud as a bridge between the ancient Mediterranean world and the global future. Thank you so much for listening to this history story to improve your English listening skills. Keep practicing your English every day, and feel free to listen to this story again to master the words. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more history stories in the future.